The Attorney-General George Brandis is embroiled in another controversy, something the Turnbull government can ill afford as it starts the final parliamentary sitting week of the year, hoping for some victories. This time it's over accusations that Senator Brandis entered into a secret deal to grant a political favour, accusations he strenuously denies. The allegations relate to the carve-up of the assets of a failed company owned by the late Alan Bond, a legal saga that's been dragging on for decades. Political correspondent Sabra Lane reports.
This welcome custom has happened for thousands of years, and we use it as a protection for country against bad spirits.
The Prime Minister and opposition leader linked arms outside Parliament, united in the cause to stop domestic violence.
No more! It was all Joe's fault.
Inside the House, the peace gave way to politics as usual, with Labor gunning for the Attorney-General George Brandis over the prolonged legal fight over the liquidation of the Bell Group, the company linked to controversial businessman Alan Bond.
It is the most complicated and costly corporate winding up in Australian history. So far, it has involved some 30 separate legal proceedings in 4 countries.
A newspaper report late last week claimed Senator Brandis had been involved in a secret deal between the Commonwealth and the West Australian government. The state passed a special law in 2015 to allow WA to go to the head of the creditors' queue, ensuring the state would receive hundreds of millions of dollars ahead of the Australian Tax Office. It was claimed Senator Brandis had directed the former Solicitor-General, Justin Gleeson, to not raise an argument in the High Court that threatened this agreement and that the attorney's wish had been defied. The High Court struck out the law in May and the WA government was reportedly furious that the Commonwealth had reneged on a deal.
It has been asserted, absurdly, by Mr Dreyfus and the opposition that I have somehow failed sufficiently to protect the interests of the Commonwealth. But every decision I made in this matter did protect the interests of the Commonwealth.
During a lengthy statement to Parliament, Senator Brandis said the former Treasurer and now US Ambassador Joe Hockey had a discussion with WA's Treasurer about the case in April last year and letters were exchanged.
Mr Hockey's letter provides no basis for the claim that an agreement or understanding had been arrived at between the Commonwealth and Western Australian governments, although it is clear that some ministers of the Western Australian government had a different view.
In short, Senator Brandis argues there's nothing to see here, but his explanation leaves questions about Joe Hockey's role.
The one thing you can say about that statement is throws Joe Hockey under a bus, doesn't it? It throws Joe Hockey under a bus. How convenient that you go after the bloke who can't defend himself.
The opposition also pursued the Prime Minister in question time over the matter.
Does the Prime Minister seriously expect the Australian people to believe that there was no agreement between the federal and Western Australian governments on the WA kickback scandal?
The Leader of the Opposition has not simply taken leave of his senses, he has taken leave of reality. We are seeing now the absolute embodiment of post-truth politics, falsehoods from the Leader of the Opposition.
Did the Attorney-General verbally instruct the Solicitor-General not to run a particular argument in the Bell case in the High Court?
The Shadow Attorney-General is asking me what transpired in a conversation between 2 distinguished members of the bar at which I was not present. Obviously, I don't know what transpired between them.
The saga has overshadowed another government success today in resolving what some would argue was another Joe Hockey legacy issue. The government's finally secured agreement to pass its backpacker tax. Last year, Mr Hockey indicated the government would make foreign seasonal workers pay a rate of 32%, but it's been forced twice to lower the rate to 19% and now 15% to win crossbench support.
Well, I just got off the phone to Scott Morrison and yes, we've got a win for the farmers, 15%, they've agreed to it, so it's going to get passed.
Well, it doesn't matter what the Labor Party does now because they've already had their fun at the expense of Australian taxpayers. They've already had their fun at the uncertainty in rural and regional community, and frankly, the Labor Party can go and take a flying leap.
The Treasurer, in a performance which was arrogant and petulant even for him, said the Labor Party could go jump. Well, he's clearly not interested in a proper, sensible and mature discussion in this, the 45th Parliament.
I think it's fantastic. Common sense had to prevail. This has been going on too long. Merry Christmas, everyone.
As well as the Pauline Hanson One Nation block of 4, the government's won the support of Nick Xenophon and his 2 senators.
That's the man I want to see.
And Darren Hinch, giving it the numbers to pass the bill.
How you going? All right. Where are you watching?
How was your weekend? I'm happy to go with the government's 15. Well, I was told last night by the government that it would cost too much money if they dropped to 15, but obviously something happened in the interim, so they have. So that's that.
The next priority for the government is getting the bill to revive the building watchdog, the ABCC, through Parliament. The Xenophon team was sympathetic to the government's case, but is now threatening non-cooperation in return for a better water deal for South Australia.
Still talking to the government in relation to the ABCC. There are still a number of hurdles to get over, and maybe ask me the question tomorrow morning.
Another crossbencher, David Lionhelm, says if the government does a deal on water, he won't vote to revive the building watchdog. Pauline Hanson is in favour of the ABCC, but says her party is not expecting any favours in return.
Not on one. On nothing.
The horse trading, you don't get involved in that. Do you think it complicates the process, or it makes politics look bad when you're dealing one thing for another?
Is that what the people want from us? You know, if you're going to muddy the waters, and that's how I see it. It's all, you know, people are sick and tired of seeing this politics, party politics going on, and deal with the legislation. Like, why would I knock back legislation that I think is right for the people? Because I'm not going to get something else over here.
One key crossbencher, Nick Xenophon, likens the government's task to walking a tightrope. But given all the crossbench demands and the often unhelpful suggestions from the coalition backbench, Malcolm Turnbull's job is like walking a tightrope while juggling knives and a flaming torch. However, the government is getting legislation through. It's just a bit messy. The backpacker tax will pass this week. Ms Hanson says the Parliament is working well, with the minor parties playing an important role. And she points to the latest opinion poll with support for the miners up to 18%, a 5-point increase since the election.
It's reflective of our performance on the floor of Parliament. It's also reflective of my getting around the state. People are seeing what I'm doing and what I'm trying to achieve for them. So that's what people want, you know. We're here to work for them. Oh no, I got a few wrinkles.